All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Summit Podcast. I'm on a roll this week. This is number two. And I always joke around that we're going to do this every week. And when I first started the podcast, I said, hey, we do this 52 weeks this year. And I think I got 19. And then in the second year, I got another 22 or so. So we're in the 40s somewhere. And we've got Justin Kegley today. I met Justin through Ben Newman. And you get into this personal development game and you meet some people and you get around people and you start trying to level up and you run into different people. And I remember seeing Justin on the calls, the Zoom calls. And then I saw then I saw him at an event and I went, whoa, okay, this dude's pretty serious about what he's doing. So Justin just wrote a book. It's called High Performance Nutrition for High School Athletes. It's on Amazon right now. I said to him the other day, let's get you on, let's talk about your book. But when I get guys like this on, I also like to talk about the other things like discipline and performance and motivation, accountability, and all the things that you guys hear me talking about every day. So, Justin, welcome to the Summit Podcast. I appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Bob, I really appreciate you having me on. Obviously, it's been great to get to know you through Ben and through the Uncommon group, and so it's just a real pleasure to be here. So look, I started off. I'm a personal trainer and sport performance coach in Rockford, Illinois. I own a facility called Movement Fitness, and really everything that has happened for me over the last 8 to 10 years of doing this has been born out of the fact that I just want to help people to achieve their best. I played football. I played college football growing up, football, basketball, baseball in high school, did some powerlifting, bodybuilding, all those kind of things. And then, 4 years kind of after I got out of college, I found myself in a spot where I was 296 pounds
Wow.
and not a bulky 296, like a fat 296. Okay. So I found myself in this spot, and what had happened was really, Bob, it came to the point where I stepped on the scale Christmas Day, 2006, in my in-laws' house, and I realized that I was 296. And what happened to me was not about the number. It wasn't even about how uncomfortable I was in my own skin. It was about the fact that I had a 6-month-old son and that he wasn't going to see a dad that was energetic, that was going to show up, that was going to give him a life, that taught him, how to play basketball and baseball and be active and be able to come home after work and show up and give him the energy that he needed in order to show him what it means to be a real man and to show up authentically. And so that set off a trajectory for my life that changed everything. And over the next 6 months, I lost 50 pounds. Over the next 2 years, I lost 100 pounds and, continued on that path. And a few years later, after I continued to take one step at a time, opened up this personal training facility and sports performance training. And it's continued to lead everything that I do in my life. My wife and I co-own this, and so she's here every day with me. And so we are just working to make an impact in our community and to continue to help people to be the best that they could possibly be and reach their God-given potential.
Well, that's awesome. That's good stuff. And I've been looking forward to having you on. In fact, I was talking to my friend Stan Schofield the other day, and he has a center very similar to what you described right here in Maine. And we had our Edge event at that center in January. But I was telling Stan, I said, I got a guy that I need to introduce you to. Like, you ever know, like, there's two guys that you got to bring them together. So
Absolutely.
I'll make that introduction. Stan's been on the podcast one or two times, and he's been a great friend of mine and mentor. And I love being around guys like you that are doing things at a high level. And that's really where how this podcast was born. I said, let's get out and talk to people that are doing some cool things. And I like what you're doing. I know what you're doing because I'm close to Stan. You're working with kids, and it's not easy. Okay, they
Sure.
show up. They might not have done their drink the shake that day. A lot of them are trying to put weight on, unlike maybe you or I try to take weight off. And
Right.
so you're after them all the time. Talk to me a little bit about the kids and how you're able to connect with them, because you know how it is. You don't want, sometimes as a kid, you don't want to hear from an adult, but when it's not your parent, sometimes that's okay.
It's always different when it's not your parents.
Right.
So that's where we get to come in and we get to tell them all the things that their parents have probably told them or talked to them about, but it comes from a different voice. So it doesn't sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? So um, that's the difference. Like I love training kids these days, because there are so many kids that want to do things that are beyond what they think are possible, or they want to achieve big goals and dreams. And so when you look at the current landscape of sports and what happens, early on, ages 8, 9, 10, 11, they're like, man, I want to go play in MLB. I want to play NBA, NFL. I want to do all these things. But then as you progress over time, dreams change. But what you see is kids that really want it will dig in.
Right.
And there's a conversation that I love to have with kids, generally around that 8th grade, maybe freshman year, that we start to talk about, like, hey, what do you really want to achieve? Because we all know this. Anything that we do is driven by our purpose, our mission, as Ben calls it, our burn. What's the thing that's really going to set us afire to push through all the stuff? Because guess what? They have friends, they have school, they have video games, they have all the things that are going on in their lives. And ultimately, they have to have a purpose that's going to push them through and say, you know what? I'm going to show up and give my best effort at training today. I'm going to go do the extra. I'm going to work hard at practice. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to get great grades. I'm going to go to bed on time. I'm going to drink my water and learn how to fuel my body. And that's what's going to separate them. And then they're going to do it consistently over time. And ultimately, they will be able to achieve their goals. And so it takes a different mindset, because you can't just show up because you're on the travel team. Everybody's on a travel team these days.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about that anymore. What's special is found in the fundamentals. People want, the hack, and they want to be able to do, something that's super special. Show me the great exercise that the professionals are doing. And you go, you know what the professionals are doing? They're doing the fundamentals and they're mastering them. That's what they're doing. And so the challenge is having that, first off, what's your purpose and what's your reason for doing what you're doing? And then secondarily, do not get bored with the fundamentals. You have to master the mundane and continue to push through no matter what, and help them to realize you can achieve these things, but it takes more time and effort. The people that have success generally are just the ones that continued and put in the work over time.
Right. Don't you remember, you played sports as a kid and growing up, and don't you remember the guys or the coaches that they were the hardest on you, but they cared the most, right? Like I remember one of my favorite coaches would just gave it to us straight all the time. And we were a pretty good team. And he said, you know what you guys' problem is? You've been reading your press clippings. And that's stuck in my mind forever, and it made me realize that, like Ben talks about, we don't get seduced by success, right? Hey, you're only as good as your last race. You're only as good as your last game. What are you going to do going forward? So what do you get for responses from kids when you ask them those questions? Is it, kind of, I don't really know. I'm just here because my folks wanted to enroll me. Or do you get some big dreams and some kids that are looking to do some big things?
Yeah, we get a lot of big dreams. So you find in that, I find in that about 15-ish time frame, that's where you start to see the separation, where you see people go, okay, I've been wanting this dream, but it's really hard. And I don't know that I want to keep doing it. And not that some of them quit just because, they don't want to continue on. But the other people, I have different priorities. I want to do better in school. I want to have academic things, whatever. I want to play instruments. I want to go do theater productions, whatever it is. And that's great. I want to have the discussion with them so that they know that there will be something different expected of them if they're going to go on.
Right.
What do I get from kids? So I get from them the real talk, because what happens is this isn't just one conversation for them. Generally, it's over the series of a couple of months, where it's like, hey, what do you really want? I don't know. In the beginning, it's kind of that, I don't really know. I don't understand. Or they may know, but they're afraid to say it. To be able to say, like, I want to play Division I soccer. I want to play whatever sport that it is. So part of that is getting them out of that comfort zone to say, this is what I really want, so that ultimately we can come back and say, great, here's what it's going to require. So, and then they can kind of decide on their own, and you see it not necessarily in what they say. It's seen more in what they do. So ultimately, you'll see it in their effort. I had a conversation with an eighth grader. She's a senior now. I had a conversation with an eighth grader, and I said, "What is your goal?" She said, "Well, I want to play D1 volleyball." I said, "That's really great. I think you're capable, but you're going to have to put in way more effort than you currently are." And she looked at me like I had three heads and I was the meanest person in the world. So consequently, her actions changed though
Yeah.
over time because she realized, okay, I'm doing kind of what everybody else is doing right now. And in order for me to differentiate myself, because I know not everyone gets to play at a D1 level, I'm going to have to do something different. So over time, it's really not about what they say, it's about what they do, because that ultimately tells us what they really believe.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to see some of these kids develop and going to Stan's facility. I worked out there for a couple of years, and there was a kid there that was I don't know, he was seventh or eighth grade, right? And he was 140 pounds, and I just watched him compete in the state championship basketball game at 175, and he's just turned into this tremendous basketball player. But to me, he was just this little guy that was just
Yeah.
showing up and doing the work. So, I mean, super cool stuff. I had a question on my mind. I forgot what it was. I was trying to write it down while you were asking me. Give me 1 second. It escapes me. Um, it was about the kids. Totally escapes me. Totally escapes me. Oh, I know what it
Yeah.
was. Here it is. How much of what you do with them is, I know it's work. Hey, you got to do the reps. You got to do this. Here's the trajectory, weight wise, body weight wise, what we're doing. Here's the program. How much of it is life related? Because you know you're having conversations with these guys in growth, right? They go through stuff, right? So it's almost not unlike, counseling, therapy, coaching, right? Do you have times like that where you're kind of able to impart wisdom on the life side?
Absolutely. Because what we're trying to do is ultimately teach them that everything they're doing in the weight room, everything they're doing on the field or court is going to lead them to make better choices in the boardroom as a wife, as a husband, as a
Right.
leader, whatever it is, wherever they go in the future. We know that training is literally just an opportunity for us to show them what people are truly capable of. So the goal is that we want to push you physically. I want you to become better. But what you really need to do is learn to master the fundamentals to be able to continue to put in work even when you don't want to. Because in a job, when you're sitting there and you're like, I have to write this proposal, I have to make these calls, I have to do these things. When we take that attitude and apply it there, ultimately your ability to focus and lock in and do things even if you don't want to, but you know you have to, that's living to a standard, not your feelings. Ben always talks about we live to that standard and we constantly do the things that matter. That's taught on the training floor. I mean,
Right.
there are lots of people that you don't want to do extra 5 pounds on your deadlift. You don't want to have to put in another set of squats, whatever. You don't want to do those things necessarily. But knowing that if I do them, I'm going to achieve this result will teach them in the long run that the more I'm consistent and the better I do over time, the better results that I will get. So really, ultimately for me, I know that these kids' sports career is going to end at some point, whether they go on to the highest level and play professionally or whether they stop at, their junior year. At some point, it's going to change. But my job is to help them to see that they can be more than what they currently are. And that I believe that God has gifted them with some tremendous abilities. And I want them to maximize them.
I remember commenting to Stan one day. I said, "You're not building athletes, you're building self-esteem." In a lot of ways, you guys really are. It's cool stuff. It's good work that you're doing. It's I have a lot of respect for you for what you're doing. Tell me about the book, High Performance Nutrition for High School Athletes.
Absolutely. The book was written to give as a guide to my athletes. A couple of years ago, we did this very unscientific study here at Movement. And when our athletes came in the summer, we did this mostly during the morning sessions. So the series of couple of weeks, we asked them just a couple questions. Like, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Did you have at least 10 ounces of water before you came in? If you had gone to a practice or something before you came here, what did you have after that? And the results were shocking because we have a lot of really great kids with supportive parents that help them in pretty much any way that they can.
Yeah.
And we found that these kids were not eating to fuel themselves for success. I mean, they're eating, maybe a granola bar for breakfast. They're not drinking water before they come in to train. So it's 9:30, they're waking up. Some of them are waking up at 8 o'clock and then they're coming in, just to work out. We have other people that have, maybe have gone to a practice or in training earlier and then come to train with us. They're not eating in between that. They're not fueling themselves for success. So therefore they're tired. And so we just found that, and it was an important thing for us because number one, we want them to fuel better, but two, it's an education piece. You can't continue to put out high levels of energy if you're not fueling yourself for success. So that was number one, is making sure that we put together something. I wanted to have something in hand to go, hey, take this and go utilize it. But not only that, it goes on the parents and coaches side as well. Because the first thing the parents do when they walk in the door is they say, hey, can you help Jimmy or Susie get faster, get stronger? Yes, we can do that. We'd love to. Oh, and by the way, can you help them with their nutrition, please? Right? And it's like, okay, great. But what I want people to know, I want parents to know is this. It's twofold. I understand the challenge of having teenagers because I have 3 of them.
Right.
Okay. So I understand the challenge from a parent perspective. But what I also know is while people can come along and reinforce and help to help our kids make better decisions, I'm the one, and my wife is the one that is buying the groceries. If I don't like their nutrition habits, I'm buying the food.
Good point.
Yes, they may have free reign at lunch, and they may not get what you want them to get. But look, breakfast, dinner, any snacks that they have, stuff that they're taking with them, that's coming out of my pantry or my refrigerator. So if I'm not teaching them what they need to eat, that's on me.
Yeah.
And this goes back to a larger problem, and it's a little bit of a tangent. People always ask that, well, what's wrong with kids these days? What's the problem? Why are things so different? Kids aren't different. They don't know any better.
Right.
It's the parents. And I love you because I am one too. So I struggle with these things as well. I get it. It's not a diss. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But we have to be intentional. We live in this age of information, so knowledge is not the problem. We have information at our fingertips. We can get everything. But then we assume that our kids know it, or that they should have this information. Like, oh, well, you should know what to eat for breakfast, or you should know what to do for this. Now, no, we're going to have to educate them. Did you teach your kid how to make breakfast? Did you teach them how to pack a lunch and take it with them that's going to help fuel them for the rest of the day?
Right.
Did you not buy sugary snacks so that they don't load up in there in the pantry? So that's the challenge of everything. I can absolutely help, and I love being a part of that, being that village that'll help raise a child, because we all need it. That's totally true. But it also comes back to the fact that it's on us as parents that we have to make the decisions and educate our kids and give them the food that's going to help fuel them for success.
That probably surprises a few of them when you hand them the book and go,
read this. But it's good for parents too, because if they read it and they take it home, what I always love, and I do this with my kids, I will hire coaches for my kids to do, we have pitching lessons for our kids, and we have, hitting lessons and all kinds of stuff for my kids. And they come and train here. So sometimes I coach them, but other times our coaches coach them here. So what's nice is I get to then reiterate and said, hey, by the way, remember what coach said to do that? Like, that gives them, it gives me an opportunity as a parent to not be like, hey, do this, do that, do this. And they're like, like, oh, remember what Coach Mason said? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that. Okay. That's what this serves as, is to go like, hey, here's a thing Coach Justin said. I'm supposed to eat this. You're not eating to help you fuel, or to ask questions, and they're educated enough to go, hey, is that something that's going to help you to practice better today so you can play better tomorrow?
Right. Isn't it funny? when you were talking, I kind of went back to how I fueled. I wasn't fortunate enough to play ball beyond high school, but I was okay in school and I played all the time. And I think like, well, what did we bring to the baseball game? Or what did we bring? Zero. What did I have beforehand? I don't know. Cheeseburger. Like you just ate what you ate. There was no sports nutrition. And that
Right.
was 35, 30 years ago, whatever. And at a middle of a game, middle of a soccer game, you're going hard for 90 minutes. You had water. You've never even heard of an electrolyte at that time. Things are different
And
today.
things are different. And the challenge is also things are different from multiple perspectives. We know this because we have 3 kids that are doing either sports or theater or musical instruments or something. And so the challenge is having a family dinner is really hard because of our
Brutal.
schedule. But, when I was a kid, we had family dinner pretty much every night.
Yeah.
So it's different in the fact that, okay, well, we didn't have snacks and I didn't focus on, well, I should have this after school and, you should eat this before practice or after practice. But you knew for the most part, like people that I know, like we had some kind of breakfast. The lunches that we had at school they had enough stuff that would fuel us well if you chose to. And then you had dinner at night for a lot of the families. So it's different now because you don't have that. So we're like, okay, well, you're on the run. So you're going to need to prepare some food. You're going to need to take snacks with you in your bag because it is a different time and age. So it's different on multiple levels, but there's different ways to prepare so that we ultimately help teach our kids not only what will fuel you for success now, but learn the habits that will fuel you as an adult.
Yeah.
So we don't have to have these, issues with, diabetes and cardiovascular disease and obesity and things like that, that we can work to help educate people so that they can live a healthier life long term.
That's great. Hey, go back to when I was a kid. I played baseball in baseball season. I played soccer when it was soccer season. Now you've got kids that,
Oh,
you knew I was going here. By age 10 or even sooner, well, he's a hockey kid. And these guys are playing sports all day long. I have a friend that coaches up this way and more multi-sport, and he's always saying, play everything, expose them to everything. And the kids that do the best seem like the ones that did a bunch of different things. What are your thoughts on that? Are they better to specialize early and just say, hey, let's do it, or kind of paint with a broad brush and do a little bit of everything?
well, statistically, gymnastics is the sport that you would need to specialize in early.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything else, you should play multiple sports. Okay. Now, I look at this and I think there's a couple perspectives. Number one, the challenge is that we have essentially gotten rid of rec leagues and changed that out for travel sports in everything. So the hard part is I do not think that a kid should specialize early because of 2 things. Number one, the rate of increase of injury. And number two, the increase in kids falling off of their sport because by the time they're 14, they're burnt out. So it's really hard because I look at we just finished a travel basketball season with my son, my youngest, and we're going to tournaments. It was his first travel season, and so we're looking around, and I'm like, these kids have they have KT tape all over them, they have braces and sleeves and all this stuff, and I go, all right, some of that is fashionable, but you're like, if you're 12 or 13 and you're using KT tape to get through a weekend because you've played so much over the previous 6 months,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
I'm wrong there.
So there's something wrong. You shouldn't have to get through. And it's different, like, hey, I've got an ache and I need to get through the game and finish it out. And it's like, no. Like, this kid's knee is bothering him to the point where we felt like it was important enough to tape it up. And then after the game, we throw ice on it immediately. But we're going to put him out there in the game 2 hours later. So That's a challenge. But then the other part is if you specialize early and you're like, oh, my kid's a baseball star and he's a extraordinary, he can pitch super fast and he's 10. And you're like, okay, first off, nobody's gone through puberty, so we don't know how good he's going to be. Right. And two, what we find is they end up getting burnt out. There is a small percentage that is able to say, you know what, from 9 on, I'm just willing to play baseball all the time and train and do all the things because I love it so much that I just want to do that. It just doesn't happen. And so we end up driving them to the point where they quit.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too, because when they quit, they're done. I've got kids that I know that have played so much basketball, they don't care if they ever see another ball. And that, I think we do a disservice. You do them a disservice when we do that. And I've seen that a lot. When I was a kid, it was, travel soccer, just travel basketball. And then the advent of, AAU. And now if they're not playing all the time, and as parents, we're not just shelling it out, oh my God, the kid's getting left behind. All the other kids are doing the thing, and he's not.
And guess what? Most of them are not. I mean, you look at some of these professional athletes. I just was watching a thing from Johnny Manziel. He was on Club Shay Show. I was listening to a podcast, and he didn't even play football until he was 15.
Right.
You're like, that guy was 3 years later, 4 years later, whatever, 19. 4 years later, he's the Heisman Trophy winner as a freshman in college, right? The guy hadn't even picked up a football yet. Yet you have people telling you, if you don't have Johnny playing football at 9, he's not going to be anything.
Right.
That's just not true. And so the promoters of these events have ultimately put it into the hands of they're stressing the importance of, like, we got to have these tournaments. You got to go to showcases. You got to get seen. And you're like, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, just came out over the All-Star weekend and said more and more players are coming to the NBA from Europe because the American system for basketball is so broken that our games to practice ratio is literally flipped of what Europe is. They practice substantially more than they play in Europe, and that's why their skill development is so much better. Meanwhile, in America, we're worried about what happens at the AAU tournament on the weekend.
Right.
We're not developing the ability to dribble, to shoot, and our kids' attention spans are getting smaller because of that. They're like, well, I got to go compete. I got to go show them what I can do. And in the meantime, you're going, college coaches are watching or pro scouts at some point are watching, like, you can't dribble the basketball well enough to be on this court. And basketball has shifted to the point where everybody needs to shoot. Everybody needs to be able to handle the basketball no matter what your size is. So if you don't have those skills, you can't play.
Right.
So unfortunately, we're feeding them lies and we're all buying into it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew you probably would have something to say on that. On that topic. So
the other problem though too then becomes, Bob, they say, all right, be a multi-sport athlete, and now we have kids because of travel ball, they're going from soccer practice to basketball practice, and then they're coming to train, and they're like, well, you told me to be a multi-sport athlete. And I was like, yes, but not in the same time. Like,
yeah.
that's not how it's supposed to go either.
I had a guy that a friend of mine I met 10, 12 years ago, and he was injured. He's a runner guy, consummate runner guy. And I said, hey, why don't, you should take up triathlon, because then when, if you have a running injury, you can still go to the pool. You can still work on your game, and maybe you get on the bike. But he just ended up overdoing it in all three sports because that was his mentality. I looked at it as, I enjoyed the triathlon scene because for that reason, I was durable or lucky, or just the benefactor of having done different things. Like, it was all in the, what do you call that plane? You know what it is? The
sagittal plane. Yeah, we're all in the sagittal plane.
I was running in a straight line. You would not catch me playing pickup basketball because I feel like the second I went this way or that after doing the triathlon thing for so many years, probably would have a problem. But, on the times when I didn't feel great for a run, I said, hey, I'll go to the pool. That to me is multi-sport athlete.
Sure.
You get a guy like, I don't know, who are these? in my time, it was, well, Bo Jackson, right?
Yeah.
These are generational talents. And I think part of the problem with parents today is everyone thinks their kid is a generational talent.
Yeah.
Just keep just keep showing keep
Just keep
showing it
paying,
up.
keep paying the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Um, it's hard to see. I will tell you, it's it's teaching kids to be resilient. I think it's also helping them understand. There's a balance of taking breaks, of recovery, understanding. We're basically treating these kids like miniature professionals.
Right.
And that's the hard part is their body is just not structured for that. They need to progress over time. They can't take on these loads. What they also don't realize is I always love when kids go from, playing a club sport. So say they're in high school and you have a club season and then you have your high school season. So say basketball. AAU runs all summer, and then you go and you play all winter at school, and then you flip. And so you're basically playing year-round basketball. But what I love is when they go to college, and I'm like, you guys are going to love this. It's going to feel like a vacation, because they're going to go, and yeah, they're going to do their summer work, and they're going to do their fall work. They're going to go into season, and then they're going to have this post-work recovery, and it's going to be such a different thing. And the wear and tear actually for some of them comes down drastically because they're not going into competition all off season.
Right.
And you also have people that care for you from, a strength and conditioning perspective that are all on the same page and they're coaches and all that. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and it makes me think that reminds me of the pitch counts today. We never had a pitch count when we were kids.
Right.
Maybe it was a few innings or whatever. You could throw more than 6 innings in Little League or whatever, but you've got these kids on pitch counts today, which I guess is a good thing, right?
It is a good thing because if not, we've gone to tournaments where they're still running kids out there and you go, well, we have two pitchers. And you're like, all right, well, Johnny just threw your semifinal game and now he's going to come back and pitch your championship game too. It's a lot. And so I think it also limits the ability of other kids to develop.
Right.
So the challenge is when the coach's focus is on winning and not development, that's when a red flag should go up for a parent, because guess what? No one will remember the 12U tournament you won, right, in 2024,
Right.
20 years from now,
Right.
right? Like, it's just, it's not going to happen. No one cares. I mean, the parents care, obviously, and all that. That's great. But if you told me that you could be on a great team, but you're going to have tougher competition and we're going to have to develop as a team, I would rather that than my kid be the star and be the focal point of a team that, may be better or win or whatever. Like, I would much rather have a team that would compete and he would have to be in multiple positions and not just be like, well, he plays third base and that's all he plays.
Right.
No, and he's 12. He's still develop. We don't even know what he's going to be.
Right.
So let him develop.
Yeah, no, I'm on your side on that. Well, you and I met at Ben's boot camp, I believe it was. We're both trying to do things on a high level. I like what you're doing. I've followed you. I follow you on Instagram. Talk about your typical day and how you're doing what you're doing. I mean, we listen to Ben, we talk about the standard over fields, we talk about the burn, all that stuff. I mean, how does that sit with you and what gets you out of bed in the morning and what are you doing all day long?
What gets me out of bed in the morning is I am in constant pursuit of becoming the best version of myself. That's what I am always striving to be. I have this mentality, Ben talks about it, never finished. I want to continue to move the ball forward. I'll be 44 in July, and I feel like I'm just starting to hit my peak. Like I'm really starting to come into season, and I never want that to go away. So I just want to continue to push forward. And I look at my family. I want to show up. There's never been a more important time than now for a man to show up in his family and in his community, because we need it more than ever to show them not only how to, eat and all that kind of stuff, but to show up. How do you bring energy? How do you make an impact? That we're not just guys that go to work and come home, sit on the couch and go to bed. But we're people that are making an impact in our community. So that's something that drives me. I want to show up. I want to have a wife, that, we make it another 50 years and not just, struggle or hate my life. I don't want to do that. I want to have kids that love me being around and ultimately want to have a relationship with me long term, but also balancing that with the fact that I'm still dad and it is my responsibility to raise them to reach their full potential and who God created them to be. I love coming in here. So, my morning, basically I wake up between 4 and 4:30 most mornings. And I'm either getting on the bike and getting a ride in or getting right to my reading and getting to my morning routine. And then I get to work. So I'm here training people. I'm training our team more so now than ever because we've grown so much over the past 2 years. We basically doubled the size of our business, which is awesome. And so we have that. My wife has also taken on a huge responsibility. We bought the building that our facility is in last fall. So that's another responsibility. Writing and content creation, all these things. Like there's just a lot of stuff. We kind of just say yes to a lot. But I also know it's not going to be around forever.
No.
And if people want to hear me talk and want to know more about what we're doing, like that's great. I'm gonna show them because I need to protect my family and my time, but I also, with what I can, I'm going to give out as much as I can. I want to keep pouring out.
That seems to be the common theme in all the people that I bring on the podcast is they're givers. And I've heard it said that there's givers and takers. The takers eat better. The givers sleep better. You probably sleep pretty well.
I sleep good. I sleep well.
Yeah. Well, you've seen my stuff, and I'm talking a lot about the edge, and through working with Ben, and I've kind of developed this thing about the edge, and it's still coming, right? I'm still working on it and getting my vernacular down and my consistency in messaging and all the things that he talks about. But what I've been starting to do is ask people that come on the podcast, we know that the burn isn't like your why. It's really the connection of your why and purpose and how all that comes together. And I was just on with Dom Clegg from Ben's group too, and we were talking about how, it's easy. You burns your family or you burns this. It's really not. It's like my burn, I feel like, is the example that I am to others, right? It's just, well, what is my edge? My edge is how I apply that, right? And what I do with that. So I've been asking people, like, what is the arrow in your quiver? What is your edge? And how do you apply it?
So the edge for me comes to this. I know what it's like to be in my client's shoes, both as an athlete and as an adult. When I stepped on the scale and it said 296 pounds, that was a moment for me that I will still never forget. Because it wasn't about the weight. Even though, I would sit in my desk chair. I was also in a corporate job, so I was driving and, remote working at the time. But I would sit in my chair and I'd be so uncomfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And I just battled this. And I know that there are people that are fighting through these things right now in their life. And that's why I have this urgency to continue to share this message with adults, but also to share it with athletes of the how and the why, or the how and the what behind all of the things that we're doing, because I don't want them to get to a point in their life where they're like, I just kind of show up and do my thing. I think that's so awful. And I know it. I know it because I was there. And so I have a passion about it because I'm not just some guy that's been, healthy and fit my whole life and everything's been fine. I've never really had any struggles or trials. And I've certainly been very, very blessed in a lot of things in my life. But I also know what challenge and trial looks like. And so I want to help people to walk through that with them. My whole purpose in life is I'm not the hero of your story. I'm the guide. I want to be your Obi-Wan. I want to be, I want to be someone that just walks along with you and goes, look, you can do this. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do it. And you know what? There's going to be times that I'm going to tell you stuff and you're not going to like it. And that's okay. That's okay. I had a hard conversation with someone on a baseball team that I helped coach, younger kid. We had to have a conversation like, he's just not showing up. And I'm concerned about some weight stuff, which is always tough with a younger kid. And,
Yeah.
we had a conversation, and guess what? But people didn't like it. Now, fast forward, this was literally 3 weeks ago. This is a fresh thing, Bob.
Yeah.
Kid's down 8 pounds, showing up for practice different, and it's like a completely different kid. And you go, awesome. You didn't like what I had to say, and that's okay. But my job, it goes back to a quote from Tom Landry. Our job of a coach is to tell people things they don't want to hear, show them things they don't want to see in order that they can become who they were meant to be. And that's what I want to do because I know how to help guide people along the process.
Yeah, and I think that's great stuff. And it made me think that one of the things that I've said about myself is that I feel like I have the ability to say hard things to people without making them feel bad. Okay, and building them up. Yeah, you're letting them know what they need to know. However, let's do this and this and this. I'm here. We're going to walk the walk together and get across the line together. But I think that's where sometimes where coaches miss it. You know, the rule of the iron fist. It's my way or the highway, and you either fit into the program or you don't. But I think it's somebody that has a high level of skill that can recognize that each person, particularly a kid, is a kind of a different set of play, if you will. So good for you. That's good stuff.
Well, you're totally right. I think on that, you have people that goes back to that. Are you wanting to be the coach that wins the 12U, 13U tournament? That kind of mentality, as a parent, are you driving your kids to say winning is the most important thing? Because it's not. The difference is to be able to come in and say, look, here's something that you're not doing well. But I'm also going to do something else. I'm going to tell you when you are doing well, and I'm going to over-exaggerate that. B, when I'm going to tell you you're doing something bad, I'm going to pull you aside, and we're going to talk about that more than I'm going to yell. I'm not going to yell that out in front of other people to the best of my ability, and I'm going to put my arm around you and say, look, here's what's going on. Let's fix this. Here's how you can do that. And sometimes, people don't want to react to that well either, and it may take time for people to process. But I think that's the difference in someone that gets results out of people without creating animosity.
Yeah, I think that the true mark is like, and you'll know this 20, 30 years down the road, somebody comes up and taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, coach. And that's how they address you. Hey, coach, I wanted to let you know, da 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 da. This had that effect on me years ago. And to me, that's a mark of a success as a coach.
I have one of my favorite stories ever. So we started our facility in 2015, and we specialize in sports performance for female athletes. That's one of my, we train everybody, but female athletes has been a particular thing for me because when we opened up this place, it was going to be for football guys and baseball guys and, the bros and all that, because that's who I was.
Yeah.
But the first client, when you open up, you're like, dude, we got to make this thing happen. So somebody refers you a client, you're like, great, I'm going to take it. Let's do it.
Right.
The first athlete we had walk in the door was a female. She was 14 years old. She was coming off of an ACL tear. And this girl was tenacious. She had one goal. She wanted to be a D1 soccer player. She was 5'5" and she was a goalkeeper. So she didn't have genetics on her side, and she was coming off of a really significant injury. And I will tell you, I found a passion for training female athletes around that girl, and we worked to build her up over time. She was a two-year starter at the University of Wisconsin. She's now signing her first contract in the National Women's Soccer League, and super excited. She was in this week, and she just came up to me on the point you just made. She said, thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing all this stuff you did, because her mentality was so, I got to show them and do this. And she was hurt. And it's like, okay, whatever, and so we just walked along with her, and you go, that's an 8-year relationship now. Like, she's like a daughter to me, and so that's the difference of trying to walk through life with people rather than just get something out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like there's another book in your future, actually.
There is.
Yeah. Well, dude, this has been fun. I've been wanting to get together with you, and there's a bunch of you guys that are in the group, and I've just been sending out messages. Hey, would you consider being on my podcast? So I appreciate that. This helps me. I hope it'll help you. get out there, and it just gives me another thing to put out there selflessly into my group and my community. So I appreciate that. As we wrap up, I always ask people, hey, take a minute, take as much time as you want. You've got the floor, okay? Now, 5 million people aren't going to see this, but a bunch will. What do you want people to know?
I want people to know that they have a value greater than they can ever comprehend, and that you have the capability to do amazing things in your life. I think that we have become challenges. Sorry, let me back up. We have become a perfectionist society. And the challenge with the perfectionist society is that we're afraid to try it if we think there's a chance that we're going to fail.
Right.
But what we know is that people that fail actually succeed more. They succeed more, and they go past what they could have ever thought of previously. And so my goal and my challenge for people, we talk about this in our facility, like, this is the safe place to fail. Try it. Push the boundaries, because how do you know what you're truly capable of if you don't fail at some point? It is a part of the process. Our whole philosophy here is we have a be great today mentality. Be great today means to be intentional with your attitude and your actions, that you are focused on what you can do. What are you thinking about? What are you putting into your mind? What are you taking in? Positive messages? Because we know negative works negatively 100% of the time. Positively works, but we also need to be focused on what we are doing. So we have to take action every single day. And I think that's what challenges people too, is to go, look, we have people that come in and they say, I want to lose weight. Like, great. You can. But it's going to take time. And remember, the amount of time that you put it on, that's about the amount of time it's going to take to take it off, maybe a little more.
Fast, though. Fast.
Fast. So I want people to know that they have value, because if you have value, and then you understand that you need to find the purpose. We talk about this, in terms of Ben, with the burn and all that. But when people, whatever it is, I spoke at a men's conference yesterday, and they were asking me specific things about nutrition and protein and carbs and fat. And I was like, great. Here's the thing. I can give you all the strategies in the world. And most people, if I asked you, what does healthy eating look like? They would be able to tell you. It's not a matter of knowledge, really. It's a matter of why. If you have a strong enough why, you will find a way. If you don't, you will find an excuse. And when you have purpose, when you know you have value, you can achieve great things.
Good stuff, man. Guys, this has been Justin Kegley, and he's a guy that I have a lot of respect for. He's walking the walk. I've worked out beside this guy and looked over, and I moved a little further away from him in the conference, in the conference room. Actually, dude, your warm up put me down. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to be anywhere near. I don't know who that dude is, but I'm gonna go over here." So, I thank you for coming on. This has been great. I just wrote that note down. You just scratched a bunch of things down, but one of the things that I liked that you said, many things I liked, is be great today. And I can't imagine the benefit of the kids in your area having the good fortune to be around you, to train at your facility and have somebody like you guiding them. So kudos to you. Love what you're doing. Love to get you back on. You and I are going to stay connected. And hold that book up for me one more time. High Performance Nutrition for High School Athletes. Guys, it's on Amazon. You can grab it. He's Justin Kegley, friend of mine, and guy doing good things. 296 pounds. Never again, right?
Never again. Put that on the never again list.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I appreciate you having me on, man. This has been a pleasure, and I appreciate you. And I know, look, stepping out and continue to push it with what you're doing with Summit, and just really, really good stuff. And it's always the challenge, but I love it. You're walking the walk, man, and you're doing the work. So thank you for having me on, and thanks for what you're doing,
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you real soon. Guys, this has been the Summit Podcast. as you know, we bring high level people on, people that are not only just trying to do good things, they're doing great stuff. They're walking the walk. They're out there. They're pushing the envelope. They're getting up out of bed every morning. They jump out of bed and just land in their pants, pull them on. They're off and running. But they tie their shoes and put their pants on the same way you guys do every morning. So, like Justin said, you've got value. Believe it. Pass this on. Please share it. Thanks for coming in and checking us out on the Summit Podcast once again. Thanks, Justin. Take care.
Thanks, man.